All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, including Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, and the rest, one simple address, X Zone Radio TV, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Our guest this hour is Daniel Estulin. We're going to be talking to Daniel this morning in Madrid, Spain. And Daniel is an award-winning investigative journalist and best-selling author of The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, which was published in 64 countries and translated into 41 languages. He has given 2 speeches at the European Parliament on the Bilderberg Group and the international monetary crisis. In a front-page article, Wall Street Italy called Daniel one of the few people who understands the current crisis. In 2010, he was invited by Fidel Castro for a personal meeting in Havana after Castro had read Bilderberg. In 2010, Estulin became the first journalist to give a speech to the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Venezuelan Armed Forces on global financial structures and the Bilderberg Group. He is the author of 12 books, 5 of them international bestsellers, and he has sold over 6 million copies worldwide. Now, in November-December 2013, his much-awaited Bilderberg documentary will be released worldwide. His latest book, Transevolution, The Age of Human Deconstruction, describes the change of paradigm for humanity that shall define its future and threaten its very existence. Joining me now from Madrid, Spain, is Daniel Estulin. And Daniel, welcome to the X Zone.
Reb, thank you so much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show.
Daniel, let me ask you a question that arose during our pre-production meeting. How serious is the world's financial situation, and is there any way that we can actually stabilize the mess we're in?
I think the situation is obvious. All you need to do is just look, a little bit south of the border to Detroit to realize, what a mess the world is in.
Yeah.
But all of this actually is being done on purpose, as I explained back in 2010, as you said in my speech at the European Parliament, which is just unheard of. Something like what I had to say, in the European Parliament, which is an equivalent of the United States Congress or Senate. And what we're seeing right now is the wholesale destruction of the world economy. And that's, of course, being done on purpose because the elite understand, call them globalists, elite men behind the curtain, whatever you want to call them, that progress and development is directly proportional to population density. If we have technology, if we have progress, we have development, we have wealth, we have bigger families. Consequently, we have more mouths to feed. And if you're the Rockefellers, which is just a metaphor really for powerful people, because Rockefeller isn't all that powerful to begin with. But if you are dealing with people who have, a lot of wealth and power, more mouths to feed is not something that, they need or want. So for them to survive, most of us have to die. And that's a very stark conclusion. And maybe most people who are accustomed to reading mainstream press may not understand or see it this way. But again, terminology such as, deindustrialization, zero growth, the kinds of things, come from the Club of Rome's Malthusian depopulation schemes are something that have been, front and center in most mainstream media sources for decades.
Daniel, it almost seems as if war is being manipulated to meet the requirements of the quote-unquote the Rockefellers.
Well, again, we have to be very careful in labeling the Rockefellers as if they're, the men behind the curtain. I think one of the things that most people understand, and that's, I guess, one of the reasons why mainstream finally takes me very seriously, as do most world leaders, and as you said, the article in Wall Street Journal Europe, because there is no conspiracy. To think that you have 4 old geezers sitting in a dark room holding hands, staring at a crystal ball, planning the world's domination. It's simply, it's not serious. The world is a very complex place, but it is, obviously that, people like Rockefeller, they're famous They have a lot of money. They have centers and buildings named after them. But the fact is that if you go to Google search engine and you type in, David Rockefeller's name into it, and you're going to get 20, 30 million hits, doesn't make David Rockefeller important. Actually, it makes him very unimportant, because truly, really, very important people in the history of the world are invisible, which is why they're important, and which is why I literally had to spend 3 years investigating in the National Library in Florence, Italy, going back to the 13th, 14th, and 15th centuries, looking over the old notary registries to actually find some of these families who today nobody even know that they exist, but they are the one who control a lot of this power from behind the scenes.
All right, Daniel, please stand by. You and I have to take our first 2-minute commercial break. Exonation. Daniel Estulin is our very special guest. His website is www.danielestulin.com. That's DanielEstulin.com. This is the X Zone. We're going to be speaking to Daniel about trans evolution when we come back from this 2-minute commercial break. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com. Now you can dial in to listen to the X Zone radio show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7, 365. Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell. Our guest this hour is Daniel Estulin. His website is www.danielestulin.com. One quick question before we start talking about trans-evolution, the coming age of human deconstruction, Daniel, is that many people talk about the New World Order and the shadow government. Is this a reality, in your opinion, or is this just sheer conspiracy theory?
Again, it all depends how you look at it. If you're thinking of about four old geezers sitting in a dark room holding
Yeah.
hands, no, it's a conspiracy theory. It doesn't exist. In the world of international finance, there are those who steer the events and those who react to the events. While the latter, such as the Rockefellers, are better known, they're greater in numbers and seemingly more powerful. The true power rests with the former. And you could say that at the center of this global financial system, you can deal with the oligarchy today, and they're represented by organizations much more powerful than the Bilderberg conspiracy or the Bilderberg organization.
Right.
Bilderberg, it was a very important element of the oligarchical structures of the Cold War period, going back to the 50s and the 60s. And that in and of itself is a pretty significant factor, because what it meant was that Bilderberg, as well as a Trilateral Commission, and much later Trilateral Commission and Council on Foreign Relations, was a vehicle through which private, financier, oligarchical interests were able to impose their policies on what is nominally sovereign governments. So that in and of itself is an important element. Now, Bilderberg is not a secret society. It's not an evil, all-seeing eye, Jewish Masonic conspiracy. There is no conspiracy, even though a lot of people with their infantile fantasies see it as such. It's literally a meeting of people who represent a certain ideology. It's a medium, you could say, of bringing together financial institutions, which are the world's most powerful and most predatory financial interests. And at this time, it's a combination of these interests, which is the worst enemy of humanity. But that said, again, Bilderberg, Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, Bohemian Grove, Lipinai Circle, they're conveyor belts. The fact that, they have a web page, the fact that we know more or less where they meet, although not, officially, the fact that, in my book, there's 120 pages of photographs of these individuals and documents, goes to show you that they're important at a certain medium level. But if powerful people wanted to keep you away and not have you be aware of what they're meeting, they certainly have the capability, the money, and the know-how to do this. So again, Bilderberg is not an evil, all-seeing Jewish Masonic eye. It's an important element in certain organizational structures and dynamics of power, but it is not the top of anything.
As the international best-selling author of The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, what prompted you to write a book about transhumanization?
Actually, the initial impetus to write this book, I got from my sources at the 2005 Bilderberg conference. At the end of the conference, which took place in Rotterdam, Germany, the inner circle of Bilderberg, about 15, 17 people, if memory doesn't serves me correctly, when the rest of the attendees, 120 other attendees, went home, this small group of people met at a castle following the conclusion of the Bilderberg 2005 meeting, where they were discussing what turned out later to be a Strategic Trends Report 2007-2036. At the time, it was a secret source document on the future of humanity. Today, you can download it off the internet for free. It's called Strategic Trends Report 2007-2036. And I got from my sources at the Bilderberg conference about 37 pages, if I remember correctly, of the document itself, which was a blueprint, again, with dealing with the future of humanity in all of its manifestations: financial, economic, political, demographic, technological areas and markets, and so on and so forth. And what I was reading in this report, and in other reports, subsequent reports, such as the Age of Transition, the Global Future 2045 report, NBIC report from their NBIC conference, literally the visions laid out in all of these reports included robotics, cybernetics, artificial intelligence, life extensions, brain enhancement, brain-to-brain interaction, virtual reality, genetic engineering, teleportation, human-machine interfaces, neuromorphic engineering, enhanced human capabilities for defense purposes, and needless to say, economy and so on and so forth, space exploration. And what I realized when I read these reports and kind of put them together, especially, in light of what they were saying about, the destruction of the world economy, which was going to take place. And again, we're in the year 2005,
right,
where things were, hunky-dory and everything was going very, very well. And what they were saying in this report Again, lack of food, water, medicine, proper hygiene, education, and basic human necessities will spell collapse. And without mincing words, they talked about this growing gap between majority and a small number of highly visible, super rich. Then they talked about things like civil war, intercommunal violence, insurgency, pervasive criminality, widespread disorder, collapse of the entire globalized economy. Nation states, meaning countries, will have disappeared by the year 2035 and will have been replaced by mega cities of 20 million people or more. And then the report concluded that by 2035, because of the generalized collapse of everything around us, the megacity will have collapsed themselves, which is endemic of state failure, which in turn these city failures will precipitate. And when I read all this, and putting it in context with what they were talking about, I realized that with these technological advancements, on the one hand, what they're doing, and we're seeing it again all around us, the destruction of the economy, they're sending 99% of us to hell in a handheld basket, while they're using gazillions of dollars of their wealth to create this incredible technological advancements, which will separate them from us even more than we are today. And that will lead to something which was shocking when I finally realized what I was seeing, is that the generation of our children, the kids who are today 15, 20 years old, is one last final generation of human beings on the planet. Their children and their grandchildren will be transhuman, they'll be post-human, they'll be men or women or person machines, so they'll be cyborgs, they'll be beings who are not totally human as a result of synthetic biology and the ability that we have right now create beings that don't exist on a planet Earth in a laboratory. And this is the world we're facing right now, and people don't understand that as they're getting ready to watch the Olympics opening ceremony, they're talking about, or closing ceremony, or the Olympic Games themselves, we're literally standing at the cusp of the greatest, change in the history of mankind. These technologies, they're not being developed to stop the terrorists. They're being developed to stop us, the people, because there are 7 billion people on the planet and they're few, but they are powerful and they certainly have the know-how and technology to stop us. And the laws, Rob, to justify these technologies were not written on a whim. It's not like someone just decided one day to do this. They've been actually thought out and planned for a very long time. And these technologies and these laws are specifically designed to give the government the carte blanche authority over the people during this chaos and confusion they call the age of transition. Transition to a planetary civilization. And again, what people have to understand is that the future bin Ladens and Gaddafis and Assads, they're not the enemy. They never were the enemy. We, the people, are the enemy. And because of the technological developments, whether you're standing at the airport, at the border crossing, street corners, from now on, we will all be mind probed by amazing new technology being developed by the Human Factors Division of the Department of Homeland Security, Science, and Technology Directorate.
That's totally different from the view they want the public to understand.
Well, technology is an amazing thing. There's nothing wrong with technology, and again, I think what has happened with the subject of this book, Trans Evolution, the coming age of human deconstruction, is that people don't know how to take it. With Bilderberg, it was easy because we always knew that whether you had a coup d'état, a financial shenanigans, or banks going under, or someone was doing something to someone. We knew this was being done from behind the scenes. We just didn't know who these people were. Okay, but what I did with Bilderberg is I put the faces, the deeds, the events, their meetings, and their secret gatherings together, and suddenly we knew who they were. And so that was easy. You finished the book, you said, so these guys are the bad guys. But with this book, Trans Evolution, when you finish reading it, you actually have more questions than answers, because we're dealing with the future. And although we can extrapolate our knowledge into the future, we know what we have, we know where we come from, and we know what we have achieved And in the last, for example, 50 years, we've learned more than the entire history of mankind. And in the following 20, we will have learned more than in these last 50 than it is more in the entire history of mankind. And in about a generation and a half, we will be doubling our knowledge annually. But what it basically does is, it, again, because you're dealing with the future, you have to extrapolate knowledge. And people don't know how to do that. But technology is an amazing thing. Just look, if we go back, way back.
All right, I'm going to have to ask you to hold that thought. I have to take my news break at the bottom of the hour.
Perfect.
Please stand by.
Okay.
Exonation, Daniel Estulin is our special guest. We're talking about Daniel's new book called Transevolution, The Coming Age of Human Deconstruction. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. We're coming to you from our broadcast center worldwide here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Do you have a dis-ease that you would like to alleviate through a natural means? Have you been contacted by angels, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Mara, and I'm offering my services free of charge for first-time clients contacting me during the month of April. These free consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you have always wanted to explore these types of experiences but were skeptical or simply could not afford them, then take advantage of this free special offer. Contact me through my website, aguidinglight, spelled lite.com, to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com.
Appreciation.
Daniel Estulin is my special guest for this hour, X-Zone Nation. He's the author of Transevolution, The Coming Age of Human Deconstruction. His website is www.danielestulin.com. Daniel, it seems like Hollywood was on the mark with movies such as, what was the name of that one? The Terminator, and other movies where they have, added humans to machines like the Borg on Star Trek. When do you think society will be able to actually see these transhumans for themselves instead of on the Hollywood giant screens?
Well, first of all, it's a very, very, a good observation about Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
We have to watch what they do, not because Hollywood is great, but because it's great at mind manipulating people and setting trends, and realizing that Hollywood is owned by, the same man behind the curtain, these zillionaires of all the money in the world. What they do, what they show is, especially when we're dealing with high tech, is very important. So whether you're talking about, the Terminator, Blade Runner, which is a term, the Strategic Trends Report, which came out of the Bilderberg 2005 meeting, they use that describing the future world as the Blade Runner world. RoboCop, G.I. Joe 2, where we're talking about this high-end, nanotech. Prototype, a film which is in this, stages of being made right now, where they talk about singularity. Ascendance, that's coming out, I think, next month with Johnny Depp. where the concept of uploading your consciousness onto the computer is described and discussed. Gattaca, which is an amazing film about synthetic biology when it was first released with Jude Law. Public Enemy with Will Smith about NSA and security apparatus. I Am Legend also with Will Smith and, vaccines and bacteria. Moon, Minority Report, Avatar, video games like Deus Ex. That's a Canadian company from Montreal. And as far as I'm concerned, they're absolutely the best in the world. This stuff was real, and a lot of the things that we're seeing right now, already are in the testing stages. For example, engineers at Southern Methodist University are working closely with DARPA, which is the science arm of United States Defense Department, to develop a new type of eye scanner that could identify a room full of people without their knowledge. And this is something you can actually be able to do in the next 6 months. And, with the help of a new, very complex algorithms, it can function with a partial scan, and you could do it over thousands of people at the same time. Now, there's another thing. I don't know if you remember the film called Minority Report with Tom Cruise.
Oh, sure, yeah.
In that film, Cruise's character, John Anderton, has this radical surgery to replace his eye so that he can get past security systems that scan his retina to identify him. We're talking about the pre-crime officer, no? Well, the ability to scan retinas to identify people, it may seem straight out of science fiction film, but aside of these little spider-like, drone bots, which kind of got into his, bathtub when he was, having a bath, this is very much present and near future.
Sure.
And this system is called Smart Iris. Okay. Now there's another system, if you remember, in Men in Black, the Hollywood film also with Will Smith. This technology called amnesia beam. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
Well, that already exists. It exists as we speak, ready to be used at a moment's notice. What's more, a team of neuroscientists has actually developed a brain scan based on finding hints about what a subject is intended to do. And this is a nightmare version of Minority Report made reality. And they claim that they can do this with children who are as young as 3, because allegedly the seeds of criminal and antisocial behavior are visible with children beginning with that age. So I think we're very, very close in a lot of these experiments. There's another group of people, a transhumanist movement called Russia 2045. And if you listen to what they say and the kinds of things that they're talking about, they're saying that by 2035, and this isn't just a couple of wacky characters who live on top of a mountain. These are Nobel Prize winning scientists, some of the greatest thinkers in the 20th and 21st century. People like Michio Kaku, people like Ray Kurzweil, the tech director for Google. They're convinced that by 2035 we will have successfully transferred one's personality to an alternative carrier, meaning an avatar. And they call this epoch of cybernetic immortality. So in one generation, literally from now until 2035, bodies made of nanorobots will take shape or rise alongside hologram bodies. And by 2045, these transhumanists are convinced that we'll be living the new era of neo-humanity.
All right, but let me ask you this. I'm listening to all this, and I'm saying to myself, I don't want a world like this. I really don't want a world like this. How is this going to affect people who have morals, who believe in a God, who believe in creation, who believe that there are many scientists out there who are crossing the boundaries?
These are very good questions, and unfortunately, there are no very good answers. I can give you different answers, but again, because we're extrapolating what we know into the future,
right,
and we're dealing with with elements which don't have a concrete answer. But what I can tell you, a lot of these things will be very easy to implement. We know how the media works. For example, let me talk about a Blade Runner by the name of Oscar Pistorius. You might be familiar with him. He is the man on blades who won a bronze medal at 2012 Olympic Games in a 400-meter track. He became famous for that, and he became infamous when he killed his girlfriend in South Africa a few months later. I don't know if you remember that
Sure
episode.
do.
Well, I could see in the next few years, and social scientists already working on how this is going to be done. People walking down the street with artificial blade legs and arms, because it will be cool to do that. Because the media will have taken the concept of transhumanism and pushed it on us and rammed it down our throats. We will have had models on television, billboards.
But-
People will be talking about it the same way they talk about, homosexuals.
But what we've seen,
trans-
but what we've seen over the history of this planet is that when enough people get pissed off at what science is doing, what the media is doing, the people have the power, and the people can make the difference. And I can see one massive worldwide revolution coming up.
I don't see that, unfortunately, and I do mean unfortunately. If that was the case, where are all these people when we're looking at Detroit, a motor city, the motor city, which has been for so long such an important element of the American economy? It's been destroyed. It's been turned into a post-apocalyptic city.
Sure,
and it
by
looks like
greed.
the president did.
By greed. The greed of the people who had the power to either make it or break
Absolutely.
it. And
no
yet, if you try to use the same argument with the city of New York, the city of Los Angeles, or any other thriving metropolis in any country in the world, the events of Detroit, its downfall, are insignificant.
Well, they may be so, but the point is, again, let's look at Europe.
Okay.
So I live in Spain. Spain doesn't exist as a country anymore. It's a protectorate. It has been taken over by the people who run the world's financial systems. You can say the same about Portugal. You can say the same about Greece. Look at the Ukraine. Look at Southeast Asia. Look at South America and Argentina. So we're seeing this, the entire world is going in financial hell, and not enough people. We should have a revolution today. A lot of these leaders should be hung from trees, but they're not, because they control the media, they control the key institutions, and it's not a conspiracy. You don't need millions of people to do that. You just need.
I don't think the media is the big bad player here. I really don't. The media is at times the scapegoat for the rich and the famous. When you're looking
if you control the media, you can control how people think. A lot of the times people, when they read my books, they say, if what you say is true, why isn't it on the cover of the New York Times? The reason it's not on the cover of the New York Times or the Washington Post or CNN is because the world corporate media is part of the world's elite, which is one of the reasons, the Rockefellers and Chase Manhattan Banks and Bank of Americas and Citigroups, they are big owners, important chunks of media conglomerates, because if they own 5%, they can have the controlling interest in the company, which means that when the New York Times, if one day they decide to bring out all the dirty dealings in the international drug trade, as we've seen last year with Hong Sheng, we've seen with Citigroup, as we've seen with Wachovia laundering $400 billion of narcos, drug money. They can't publish it on the front page because they're owned by the same corporate interests who control the world's financial structures.
All right, let me ask you this. What is the percentage in world population that actually you believe control what's going on? 5%, 4%,
No,
3%, 2%,
I think
1%?
we're probably dealing with about maybe 6, 7, 10,000 people, out of which really important, are a handful.
All right, so why can't the rest of the world get together and do something about it? Why is there no leadership? Why is there no leadership? Is it because there's not enough substantial evidence to back up these claims?
Oh, there's tons of evidence. No, it's not that. There's tons. There's more than enough. Look at American politics. How many people still believe that Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy? And this is 50 years after he was killed. And there's such an abundance of evidence that it never had anything to do with it.
All right, let me ask you two questions. Who killed JFK, and what was the real reason for 9/11?
I don't know who killed him, but we certainly know who didn't kill him. And, you could say the same about Martin Luther King. You could say the same about 9/11. You could say the same about all these different conspiracies. But what we do know is that for whatever reason, most people to believe the official party line. I guess because believing something else makes it evident that the world you live in has very little to do with democracy. And the fact that people don't understand that the guy they vote for and who sits in the White House, whatever his name is, it doesn't matter if it's Obama or if it's Bush or whoever, the people who put him there, the financial interests who spend a lot of money of getting that man elected, are going to make sure that that individual represents their financial interests. No sitting president ever, presides over anything. And to think that a guy who is sitting at the White House is the most powerful man in the world has very little to do with the reality of how the real world really runs.
You know, I noticed that you've been you've talked to the Venezuelan armed forces. You've talked. You've been featured on Wall Street in Italy. How does the American press take you, and why haven't you done more in America?
I've done tons in America. I mean, my book sold over 500,000 copies in the United States,
Yeah.
which is a lot of books.
Sure.
And my book Bilderberg was number 4 on Amazon.
Right.
And we've done shows. I've done interviews on CNN. I've been interviewed by the Los Angeles Times. I've been interviewed by major media. But America is such a big country that it's not like Spain, which is a little country, or Canada, which is a big country territorially, but it's not a big country in terms of population or influence.
Yeah.
So, and I'm from Toronto. My family lives in Canada. But the point is, America. I mean, you could be in New York, Rob, and you know that, and the rest of the world doesn't exist because New York is not a city; it's a country, it's a continent, it's the planet Earth or the planet New York.
Well, that's the way it is wherever you live, whether it's Toronto, Mississauga, or whether it's Vancouver, or whether it's
not. When you're in Toronto, it's just you realize it's just a big little city, and if you're in Mississauga,
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
But
just
Madrid, for example, you realize it's nothing. Madrid is just a big little city with 3 million people, which really doesn't do of any importance to anybody in the world. But the United States, it's not just a country; it's an entire world. And whether you're in Los Angeles, whether you're in Seattle, you're so far away from the rest of the world that the rest of the world doesn't actually exist.
But what I was trying to get at is, talking to the Venezuelan chiefs of staff, talking to the Wall Street Journal in Italy. Have you been asked to speak to Congress, to the American Joint Chiefs of Staff?
No, I've been asked to speak to Congress. I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I've done tours across the United States. We've given conferences, in over a dozen cities in New York and in Portland, in Los Angeles. We've done conferences and press conferences all over the country. And actually, the Hollywood version of Bilderberg was bought by a company who produced Terminator 4. And that was never released. But the point is, they did buy the rights to my book to make a feature film. But again, America is a big country, and the mainstream media is obviously the gatekeepers of the truth. And I have been interviewed by independent media, but again, no Wall Street Journal articles or New York Times or the Washington Post articles, unfortunately.
Or speaking to the American Joint Chiefs of Staff, or addressing Congress.
Unfortunately, not. I don't need to speak to them. They know how things are done. It's the Venezuelan armed forces who don't really understand how the world works.
Interesting. Where do you see the, like when we're talking about transhumanism, how is this going to affect? Are there any positive sides to this, or is it all doom, gloom, high tech, and the human race is going to be subtly eliminated?
I think a lot of it is very, very positive. I don't want people to get the wrong impression that I'm saying I'm poo-pooing the trans evolution. I think technological evolution is necessary. Again, progress and development is directly proportional to population density. So if we have 7 billion people on a planet Earth and we're going to go next generation to 10, we need the technology to be able to sustain such an incredible mass of people. And what we have a lot of the times with this technology is we can extend people's lives. So you can have on the one hand a doctor sitting in his office, be it in New York and Los Angeles and wherever, and he's operating without leaving his office on a computer on a little girl who's dying of brain cancer in the Philippines. And the same technology could also be used by a 4-star U.S. general who is sitting in his office in the Pentagon ordering a drone strike on a little village where allegedly you have terrorists, where in fact there are no terrorists, but 100 people getting ready to celebrate somebody's wedding, and that's about to be turned into a slaughter, a mass slaughter. So technologies, again, is an amazing thing.
We've got to take our final break here for a second, but I've got a question to ask you that I'd like an answer to when we come back from this break. Are we as humans at this very moment capable of handling all the information that we are being fed? Can we actually process it? We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with Daniel Estulin as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. For more information, visit www.danielestulin.com.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket, or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com. Daniel Estulin is my special guest this hour, www.danielestulin.com. He's the author of Transevolution, The Coming Age of Human Deconstruction. And then my question to you was, Daniel, before we went to the break, are humans in this very present time capable of handling all the information, or should I say processing all the information that they're subjected to?
No, the answer is absolutely not. Most people are so technologically unaware that they're still talking about microchip on your hand, where with smartphones, there's a billion of them out there. We have a microchip attached to your body 24/7. Just, look at I'll give you one example. Neuroscience, which is the study of the nervous system. With the advances in chemistry, computer science, engineering, medicine, and other disciplines, neuroscience now also includes the study of molecular, cellular, developmental, structural, functional, evolutionary, computational, and medical aspects of the nervous system. People don't understand any of this. They don't know how this works. And they don't understand that this evolution and development directly affects the sophisticated neural weapons which are being created as we speak by the governments around the world. Emotional detection systems in the very near future will pervade public areas as global surveillance network could seek out terrorists and criminals. And this is just one very tiny aspect of what is being done to us around the world. And I said earlier, from nanotechnology, which completely has changed, the dynamics of future wars, because comparing nanotech, to nuclear weapons or nano weapons, it would be like comparing bow and arrow to an M16 or a Kalashnikov. And needless to say, as I said before, synthetic biology, which will have completely changed forever, beginning now, the way we understand what a being is, because we can literally create synthetic DNA and synthetic individuals under the control of man, made in a laboratory. So over the 19th century was the revolution of harnessing energy from fossil fuels, which is oil. The 20th century was about exploiting the power of data. This century is about controlling biology, and the elite, the men who run the world from behind the curtain, are convinced that today, because of these technological developments, they have become the gods. And if they had to face the gods, they could beat them at their own game.
So in your opinion, is what is happening good or is it evil?
It's technology again is amazing, but the people who have control of this technology, I doubt very, very much they'll be using it for human good or common good for 7 billion people. If that was the case, we'll be far more advanced than we are now. That said, look, 4.5 years from now, we're getting ready, a Dutch company called Mars One, to send a manned mission to Mars. And by 2023, the Russians and the European Space Agency will be following suit. So these people are going on a one-way trip to Mars. They will live, they will colonize, and then they will die on Mars so that others, by the year 2050, can actually go and conquer the galaxies. And when I was with Castro, I said to him, and I spent 3.5 hours with him in a discussion. I said to him, Comandante, how do you understand immortality? And he started talking about, Karl Marx and all this nonsense. And then he stopped and he said, well, how do you understand it? And I said, to me, immortality is to assure the survival of our species. And for us to survive 100, 1,000, 10,000 years from now, we must, because that's what we are, people with this divine spark of reason, we must conquer galaxies so that 1 million years from now, we have conquered every nook and corner of this enormous, amazing, fascinating universe, and that's, needless to say, is wonderful.
Daniel, we're going to have to stop there because we've just run out of time. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Great pleasure talking to you, and I hope I have the pleasure of talking to you again in the future. Exonation Daniel Estulin has been our guest this hour. He's the author of Transevolution, The Coming Age of Human Deconstruction, www.danielestulin.com. I'll be back on the other side of this news break at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget you can listen to us 724 by your mobile phone or landline at 213-401-0080. Don't go away.